Hey everyone, it's Robert Hall, and this video is a user guide on the GODOX AD200 Pro. So we're going to start by using the stand attachment that is included with the 200 Pro. A quick note, you can use this stand attachment in either direction. However, the way it's designed, if you're facing the display, then the umbrella would load in this way, so you'd want the handles on your left. There are some indentations on the bottom of the 200 Pro. Those just need to line up with the top indentations right here. So you just make sure the 1/4-20 thread is in the right place and start tightening it down, and that'll provide a really secure connection. You can also use a Bowens S-bracket instead to mount this light. The battery release is on the side right here. If you push it forward, the battery will pop out, and when you're placing a battery in, just make sure to press down all the way until you hear a click. Back towards you on the opposite side, you'll find the on-off switch. Simply press it upwards to turn the light on. On the same side as the battery, you're going to find this port right here for a 3.5mm sync jack, or for the old trigger, which use a USB interface. Now, if you're trying to update firmware on it, you're not using this USB interface. This is for wireless triggering. Instead, there is a USB Type-C port right down here on the bottom of the flash. All right, we're going to start in the bottom right corner. The bottom right button is a test button. If you press it, it will test fire the flash. Also, as it recycles, it will dim and then brighten with red again. Once it's bright red, that means it's ready to go for another flash. Bottom left corner is the modeling lamp button, which will change a little bit depending on which head you have on. If you have the Fresnel head on, there's only one level of brightness. If you have the round head on, like I do right now, there's actually 3 levels of brightness. So you'll see it start out with the bulb like 1/3 full, and then get a little bit more full. That's the second power level, and then get its brightest. And then you press it again and it turns off. But if you have the Fresnel head on, it's only going to have 1 power level, so it's just on or off. It will automatically detect that. And if you have the bare bulb on, then this won't do anything, because there's no modeling lamp on the bare bulb. Above the test button, we have a button to turn the wireless on or off. If you see in the top left, right now wireless is on. That's why there's the wireless symbol as well as the channel information. But if we press that, turns it off, and strictly manual control right here. Now this would be useful if you are either trying to optically trigger the flash or connect a different receiver to the side here, such as a pocket wizard. There's ports for that on the side. You can use that, control the power on the back, and keep the wireless off. That way it knows not to search for a wireless signal, which will just make the battery last a little bit longer. If we use this dial, we can control the power in 10-stop increments all the way from top to bottom. The flash has a minimum power setting of 1/256. I think most people are going to be using this with a compatible trigger though, so you're going to want to make sure that your wireless information is on, which will bring us to some of the other button functions. This little H to the side of this button, that is the hold function of this button for high-speed sync. So if we hold this button down, you'll see high-speed sync turn on. There's really no purpose to using this because you're going to need a compatible trigger in order to use high-speed sync with it. And when you have a compatible trigger, it's automatically going to send a high-speed sync signal to this flash when it needs to be in HSS. So there's never going to be a need to come up and press this button and turn high-speed sync on the back of the device. Top right here, we have the group and channel button. If we press the button, we're going to advance the groups between A through E. And if we hold the button, you'll see the top left, the 5 starts blinking. We now have the channel activated to be changed, so we can change it anywhere from 1 to 32. Just want to make sure that this links up with your transmitter. Pressing the mode button advances between manual, stroboscopic, and TTL. And once you're in stroboscopic mode, you can use the set button to change the hertz or number of flashes per second, and then hit the set button again, and you can change the total number of flashes. So we'll press set, and let's say we wanted 5 flashes per second. We would set 5 hertz, and we wanted 10 total flashes. We'd put 10 on the left, and we would get 5 flashes per second for a total of 10 flashes, which would be ideal for a 2-second exposure. Now, as we increase the output of this flash, we'll notice that our total number of flashes or our flashes per second can drop, and that's just because as the power raises, it gets more demanding on the flash, therefore it can't do as many flashes per second. Keep in mind, you can set stroboscopic modes from the trigger itself as well. Holding the mode and the group button at the same time will reset this device to factory defaults. And that leaves the custom functions menu. There are 8 options in the custom functions menu, and you use the dial to navigate between them. Find one that you want to change, you press the set button, and you use the dial again to change the options. Custom function 1 is for the beep. You can see that little sound icon in the bottom. If we turn that on, our flash will beep when it's fully recycled. Custom function 2 is the Optical Slave function. This is the Optical Slave detector right up here on the top of the device, so that's what would need to see another flash. Optical Slave has always been a way that you can trigger a flash without any type of radio equipment. How it's designed is when this flash detects that another flash goes off, by seeing it through this, it will fire itself. So you could line up 10 flashes all in Optical Slave, and if you fired another flash at them, they would all go off. We have three options here. Off is obviously if you don't want Optical Slave at all. Then there's S1 and S2. S1 will have Optical Slave on and it will fire with whatever type of flash it sees. S2, however, will ignore pre-flashes. So if you're using a TTL flash to fire it, it will ignore the pre-flash and then fire with the second flash. F3 allows you to choose a standby time. So if we want this flash to fall asleep after a certain amount of time, we adjust F3 to either 30, 60, or 90 minutes. I just leave it off because the battery life is so good on this that it really doesn't affect it to be on for a long period of time. F4 is for a radio delay. You can program a delay anywhere from 1/100th of a second all the way to 30 seconds. This is most useful if you're trying to time it for hypersync, but it will not work when you're using a compatible trigger, simply because the compatible trigger will automatically go into high-speed sync, so there's no way to keep this out of high-speed sync when high-speed sync is enabled. So if you're trying to use hypersync, then you're going to have to use another trigger system. So if you're trying to use hypersync instead of high-speed sync, then you're going to need a different trigger system rather than the built-in receiver. F5 is the alt masking function. I've made a dedicated video on this function that is extremely useful to product photographers who have to make complex masks. The options here are N1 and N2, and it just dictates which flash in the sequence this is, and if you're using the alt masking function, which on the 200 is limited to only 2 groups, which on the 200 is limited to 2 flashes in a sequence. So if you're not using that alt masking function, just keep this to off. F6 displays T.1 flash durations. We see T.1 in the bottom left here. So if we turn those on and we go back to our menu, we now see the T.1 flash duration of this light at this power, and it will update with whatever you have the power set to. T.1 flash durations are a great way to tell the action stopping potential of a light at a certain power. So these are really useful if you're trying to freeze action. You can figure out exactly the T.1 flash duration that you need to freeze action, and you can take notes of that if you ever want to repeat those results. But in basic terms, the lower the power of the light, the faster or shorter duration the T.1 flash duration will be, and therefore the better it will be at freezing action. F7 is the ID function. Hopefully this was set to off when you got your device. The ID function is a 2-digit number that you can put on your slave lights, such as this, as well as your master and trigger lights, to ensure that nobody else can trigger a light. So if you're in a place where there's another GODOX user and you guys might be on the same channel, you can always just have an ID function, and the only way that somebody else would be able to trigger your lights is if they had the same ID, the same channel, and the same group. Finally, F8 is the color stable mode. Now I want to show you something before we turn that on. Right now at minimum power, you can see that our T.1 flash duration is 1/13,510, which is very, very fast. But if we turn our stable color mode on, our T.1 flash duration just dipped. It almost cut in half. Turning the stable color mode on will decrease the range of colors that this flash produces, which just means that it's going to be more accurate across its entire power range. With stable color mode off, this light can range anywhere from plus or minus 200K, so a range of 400 Kelvin. Whereas when it's on, it can only go plus or minus 100K for a range of 200 Kelvin. So the light is a lot more accurate with stable color mode on, and you can quickly see if you have it on or off by looking for the C inside of a circle in the top. So if you want faster flash durations, then keep stable color mode off, and if you want better color stability as you change the output of the flash, then keep it on. I like flash durations. Now there are 3 different heads available for this light. There's a bare bulb, the round head, and the original Fresnel head, and it's easy to switch them. Just pull this switch back to you, push upward on the head. When you replace it, just make sure the pins are aligned, make sure it sits flush with the body, and then press down, and you're good to go. And that's it for the operational guide on this flash. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments below. If this video helped you out, make sure to leave it a like. Subscribe to my channel if you'd like to see more videos on flash equipment. And until next time, keep on shooting.